not with a sense of urgency or hurrying to give the impression of one of the monkeys leaping out of the trees, but we will move right along to James Ball. Jim will speak to us from his experience as Senior Director of the Evangelical Environmental Network, and especially of the author, as the author of the soon-to-be-released book, Global Warming and the Risen Lord. Jim?
Thanks. Well, it's a real honor to be here with His All Holiness and Senator Sarbanes. I saw him earlier, and others. So really appreciate Maria inviting me back. I was on the Arctic trip, which was terrific, and appreciate Maria and her team and all their work. You know, if you looked up at the table here, and somebody's wondering, well, who's the evangelical? Well, it's pretty easy. It's the guy without the tie on. And Andrew is my gosh, he's a hard act to follow, isn't he? I mean, I'm sorry, mine's just a plain vanilla verbal presentation. I don't have Harrison Ford with me. And Andrew, how did you get the orchestra and the choir up there in the canopy? That's singing the Gloria. That's the thing that I thought was really amazing. So congratulations on that. If you can figure out how to do that, then climate change is a snap. So, well, the topic or the title for our panel was, I can't even quite produce it, but pollution is like a failure, something like that. And I'd like to reframe that a bit. Oh, by the way, this is my visual presentation right outside the window here. That's what I've brought, we've got commerce and creation going right past the window here, and how do we do that better? That's really what we're about here. But anyway, the pollution as a failure, well, how about pollution as an opportunity to do better, to love our neighbors? Pollution as an opportunity to do better. So let's start reframing this a little bit. Just a personal reflection on the very moving video we saw last night on Dr. King, who is a personal hero of mine. But one of the things that video shows us is that America is a land of transformations. And we can do huge but achievable transformations, and that's exactly what's needed to deal with this issue of global warming. A land of transformations, it's just no more clearly stated or demonstrated by the fact of who our current president is. But I'm also living proof of that transformation. My family is from Macomb, Mississippi. It's where my grandparents lived their whole lives. It's where my parents grew up. It's about an hour from here. And in 1961, the year that I was born, Time magazine called it the toughest anti-civil rights community in the toughest anti-civil rights area in the toughest anti-civil rights state. In 1964, it was described as the bombing capital of the world because there were over 20 bombings in the summer and fall of that year. And yet, I stand here before you today as someone who attends a church that is 70% African American. So transformation, huge transformations are indeed possible. Two basic points I'd like to make. First, the transformation needed to overcome global warming will not take place without the right public policies. And the one that really is going to drive this, the policy that's going to drive these transformations, is something called cap and trade, which I won't go into the details on unless you want to in the Q&A, but it's a market-based mechanism that puts a price on carbon and sends a signal to the marketplace that the times, they are a-changin', to quote Bob Dylan. So that's what we need, is we need a cap-and-trade system, but overcoming global warming is a marathon. And getting cap-and-trade in place is merely the crack of the gun to start the race. Most of my time right now is spent engaged in policy discussions on the Hill in DC, focused on climate policy, specifically, just quickly, parenthetically, on international adaptation, and if anybody wants to talk about that, I'd love to talk about that. But I think a lot of us who are engaged in that fight think that that's the end result. It's a tough fight that we're in. And we've been in it for decades, actually, at this point. But that fight is just training. We've just been in training. And right now, we're gathering at the start of the race. We're kind of warming up. We're getting ready to run this marathon. But we haven't even started yet. So my second point, it is through the marketplace that we will overcome global warming. That's where we will run the race. So the scientists tell us that we've got to keep, to overcome global warming. What does that mean? Well, it means, according to the scientists, that we keep the temperature from warming, not going above 2 degrees Celsius, above pre-industrial levels. Can we do that? Yes, we can. But in order to do that, McKinsey, as Andrews pointed out, one of their studies says that there needs to be a 10-fold increase in carbon productivity by 2050. A 10-fold increase in carbon productivity by 2050. That is huge, profound, incredible transformation, but it's possible. Here's where my own community, here's where we've been playing a bit of a role in terms of the policies, but I think this is where my community will play our most important role as we apply our missionary zeal to this great cause of freedom. What then, if we're looking and understanding that we've got this huge transformation that needs to take place, what then should we consider to be the spiritual goal? Well, again, I'd like to reframe what a lot of folks, I think, believe is the spiritual goal. And it's a stereotyped understanding of personal sacrifice. I don't think that's the way to understand this. The spiritual goal is not donning global warming hair shirts and living in a cave. It's not energy flagellation. That's not going to achieve our spiritual transformation. What then is the spiritual goal? It is to be Christian agents of transformation as we help to overcome global warming through this 10-fold increase in carbon productivity. We are called to be climate saints in the world, guided and sustained by our walk with our risen Lord as we run this spiritual marathon of overcoming global warming. Now again, some of the characteristics of my community are pietism, our pragmatism, our can-doism. That's a perfect formula for overcoming, transforming, of becoming climate entrepreneurs with hearts of a servant. That's what we need. Let me just give you, to kind of get out of the abstract and get into a bit more of a concrete situation, let me give you a couple of examples of the type of thing that I think those of us in the United States especially those in my community, I think that we can sink our teeth into. These types of ways of transforming, overcoming. The first is an example here in the United States, and then the second will be something in the developing world. There's a small but growing startup company in Indiana called Sunrise Solar, which in its first year in 2003 had $95,000 in earnings, but grew to approximately $3 million by 2009. Still small. The founder, Bill Keith, is a former roofer, invented the solar attic fan, and took out a second mortgage to start the company. As he told ABC News in February 2009, for the last 6 years, it's like a 45-degree angle straight up in sales. That's without incentives. If an incentive got put in place, we would grow like gangbusters. We'd have to put on a lot more people. We'd be buying a lot more raw goods. What's the incentive that needs to be there? It's the cap and trade system. Sunrise Solar has been growing because they have a great product, a fan that is easy to install, costs nothing to power, yet saves customers up to 30% on their utility bills. As Bill Keith puts it, by putting in a solar-powered attic fan, you're helping customers reduce their energy bills, extending the life of their roof, cutting down on mold and mildew, and doing it all by using the power of the sun. He adds, my fan runs the fastest when it's the hottest outside. When the sun is the most intense, this thing is running the fastest to remove heat. So it's the perfect marriage to shave the energy. Keith started out assembling the solar attic fans in his barn. Soon it became too much, but he needed more capital to expand. At the same time, one of his suppliers, Indiana Vacform, was facing layoffs due to slowdowns in the manufacturing of RVs, cars, and trucks. So Sunrise and Vacform decided to join forces, with Vacform doing the assembly, warehousing, and shipping. Brett Wolf from Vacform explains, Sunrise Solar, they've helped us level off the peaks and valleys of our business, allowing us to better plan for people, resources, machine time. That stability also benefits the company supplying our raw materials. Sunrise Solar has helped us maintain our business in a very difficult economy. So from Wolf's perspective, good jobs in a healthy economy, again quoting, will come from small companies like ours putting our heads together to innovate and incubate new ideas. It's like the farm. You plant seeds, and at first you don't see the fruits of your labor. But eventually things crack open and begin to grow and develop. So what's exciting for Brett Wolf is that such innovation is happening all across the U.S. Quoting, if 1,000 small startup companies succeed and they all employ a few dozen people and each of their suppliers also grows, doesn't that make a significant difference to America? So in 2009, even amidst tough times, Sunrise has 4 full-time employees with plans to add 4 to 8 more, while Vacform was able to maintain their employment level at 24 with the possibility of increasing by 2 to 4 to keep up with the demand for Sunrise's solar attic fan. So the inventor, Keith, has been encouraged to relocate to save money and to shift his production overseas to China. But he's decided to stay in Indiana because, quote, there's something about being where your roots are. And I want to help employ my neighbors. As Bill Keith travels the country promoting his solar attic fan, he loves to sit in the window seats on the air flight so it can look out the window at takeoff and landing. I'm looking down on all those rooftops and thinking, there's my field of dreams. That's my future. My second example is cook stoves. For cooking purposes, 2.5 billion people still burn fuel wood, charcoal, agricultural waste, and other traditional biomass in inefficient and unsustainable systems. There have been numerous well-intentioned efforts in the past to create better cook stoves, but they've not been focused on the needs and desires of the end users. Rather, they have been focused on producing efficient, less polluting stoves. If such stoves could be offered for free or at a nominal cost, then problem solved, right? Well, no. Such stoves, not necessarily designed to fit into the lives of the recipients, possibly designed to be cheap to keep costs down because they are being given away, are not valued by the end users and are therefore not used. Here's the bottom line. Recognizing that hundreds of millions of stoves should be replaced in a fairly short order. It is a business model rather than a charity mentality that will get us out of this mess. Help us focus on the efforts of the end users or customers and their needs and desires and produce a stove that is affordable, reliable, desirable. One poor villager in India named Chetram Jatrav was asked whether she should try an improved stove, whether she would. I'm sure they'd look nice, but I'd have to see them to try them. She replied with her 3 children coughing nearby because of the smoke. A major example of how to do this is a nonprofit in Colorado with a business mentality. It's called EnviroFit, which has been provided initial support from the Shell Foundation. They describe their approach as, quote, an enterprise-based business model utilizing a global supply chain supporting centralized, quality-controlled mass manufacturing, multi-tiered distribution and sales networks, location and specific market strategies. They go on to proudly state, in creating products for the developing world customers, EnviroFit utilizes the same disciplined, mature product development methodologies used by modern industry. EnviroFit's latest stove, the G Series, comes with a 5-year warranty. It is the result of over 5 years of basic research, product development, and market analysis done by EnviroFit in partnership with Colorado State University's Engines and Energy Conservation Laboratory and the Oak Ridge National Lab. The G Series includes a basic stove, but also offers a variety of accessories that help to accommodate local cooking practices and allow for venting of emissions outside the home. The stove itself retails for $25 and is made affordable through the extension of microcredit and the fact that the stoves typically pay for themselves in about 6 months due to fuel savings. In cities, the stoves are sold in stores and shops. And in the rural areas, there are local sales representatives, in many cases women from the area, who demonstrate the stoves and take orders. That's job creation, if you didn't catch that. Initially, for EnviroFit's customers, the most important characteristic of the stove is that it saves money and labor because its efficiency reduces fuel use by up to 60% and cooking time by up to 50%. And as an added bonus, it cuts global warming pollution, including both greenhouse gases and black carbon, by 50 to 80%. Well, one word can help to sum all of this up, and that's this: freedom. These are freedom stoves. They can become one of the stepping stones out of poverty, thereby enhancing the economic dimensions of freedom. More efficient cook stoves can create numerous opportunities for 2.5 billion people to make their lives better, their lives and the lives of their families, by improving their economic well-being, which of course can have positive ripple effects throughout their lives, including making them more resilient to climate impacts. Such stoves can free many of them from indoor air pollution, which kills 1.5 million women and children a year. And because improved stoves are more efficient, they will free up time spent collecting fuel wood, the majority of which is usually done by women. Worldwide, the average time collecting fuel wood in poor rural areas is more than 2.5 hours, with the worst case being 8 hours in some African countries. If we were to assume that a 50% reduction in fuel use would translate roughly into cutting the collection time in half, that would provide many poor women around the world an extra hour or so of time, for some up to 4 hours, that they could use however they saw best, however they saw fit, but including ways to generate additional family income. So there's 2 examples for you of this practical, can-do, let's get it done approach to this issue. So it's time to get real, get smart, and get busy. And then, with the Lord's help, we shall overcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim, for your linking agents of transformation, saints in the environmental field, and also business mentality. Are there questions from the floor?